Folks online, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, thanks for everyone joining online. We're going to go ahead and get the meeting started. We'll call the meeting to order at 2:00. Okay, so the first agenda item is the roll call. So if you're here, please go ahead and say your name. Jacob Conger.
Here, Jacob Conger.
Excellent. Ken Cranky.
Kenneth Cranky.
Dave Merrill.
Dave Merrill.
Mitch Walser.
Mitch Walser.
Okay. Great. So we do have a quorum. So thank you all for joining. The next agenda item is an open call to the public. So anyone from the public have anything they want to say that's not on the agenda? Okay, hearing none. We're going to move on. So this is the first meeting of the Board of Building Safety Board of Appeals for this building and fire code update. So thank you all again for attending. If we could have everyone who's on the board go ahead and introduce yourselves, just so we know who's on the board, that would be great. So Jacob, let's start with you.
Yeah, my name is Jacob Conger. I came up here in 2018 to go to NAU, studied construction management, graduated in 22, and have been with Miramonte Homes since then.
My name's Mitch Walser. I'm with JWA Architects here in town. Been here a couple of years and been on the board since almost the beginning.
Kenneth Cranky, been about a year and a half retired. Been on this board almost as long as Mitch.
Dave Merrill, Hubbard Merrill Engineering. I'm a structural engineer. And I think I joined just after Ken, so.
And Georgiana, can we introduce city staff now, even though it says member introductions? Okay, I'll go ahead. My name is Genevieve Peartree. I'm with the Sustainability Division in the city, previously in planning, so worked with Mitch a couple of times in the past. Recognize everyone else's names. So I'm supporting this process. Amy Tressler, building officials leading it. She's not feeling great today, so she may or may not be here. This is our first meeting just to kind of get things kicked off, and she'll have a more active role in the future. So anyway, that's why you're seeing emails from me. Jamie, you want to go?
I'm Jamie. Sorry. And I work in the sustainability department. I'm just going to here to help out and take some notes.
Neil Chapman, City Flagstaff Fire Department. I'm with the Wildland Fire Management Program. So I'm working on WUI code updates and vegetation issues around landscaping code, and we've been making some changes to the resource protection overlay. So really excited to be here and be part of a process that not too long ago I knew nothing about.
I'm Georgina Stasky, Deputy City Clerk. So one of the programs I'm over is boards and commissions. So just kind of, since it's been a while since meeting, just kind of here to help support.
Sounds good. It looks like we got some folks online, including Amy, who was able to join. So Amy, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself? We're doing staff introductions.
Yep, Amy Tressler, building official, and looking forward to the process. I will be there in person in about 10 minutes. Sorry, I'm just trying to get from meeting to meeting today.
Cool. Tiffany, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sorry, pressing the wrong buttons. Tiffany Antal, zoning code manager, just listening.
And one last person who's not city staff, who's part of this process, Dave Basinger from Shums Coda, who's helping us draft the code amendments. Oh, yeah. And Barbara there. Yeah. Go ahead, Dave.
Dave Bassner, the principal CEO of Shums Coda Associates, and Barbara.
I'm Barbara Rice. I'm the Arizona Regional Manager for Shums Coda Associates.
Thank you. Yeah, so thank you all again for Board of Appeals members for being here. And this is the city staff you're going to be working with most closely as part of this process. Okay, so the next item is number 5, action items. So it's discussion and possible vote on selecting a chair and vice chair. So that's kind of our first main order of business. So like to open up the floor for anyone who is interested, and then the board can go from there.
I would like to nominate Jacob. I'll second that.
See?
I was the last chair, if I remember right.
I thought you were and I was vice. Yeah, we've been switching around, so welcome.
Throw me to the wolves, yeah.
Any discussion? Okay, does the board want to go ahead and vote on that? Or do you?
Aye.
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 Hi.
Okay, wonderful. So Jacob is the new chair. Okay,
on?
wonderful.
Did something just happen?
Oh, come here. Come on. Tiffany, I think you're still unmute.
I just muted you.
Okay. Wonderful. So now we have a vice chair. So I want to open up the floor for anyone to nominate themselves or someone else.
I nominate Dave.
Dang it.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed?
Maybe.
All right. Welcome,
Don't you feel privileged?
the new vice chair.
Good job.
Okay, wonderful. Georgiana, did I do what I needed to do good enough? Okay, thank you. She's making sure we're following the process because it's been a while since this board has met. So, okay, so the next couple background items before we get to really the biggest part is talking about the code changes. It's just a little bit about the process and the timeline. So I'm going to share my screen real quick, and this is kind of there's a lot on here, but basically it's just showing there's a lot of moving pieces that we're trying to keep going. It's not letting me. Okay. Yeah, so basically there's just a lot of moving parts, and this is our internal, this is our kind of planning document. Actually, I think I haven't joined Teams yet. My apologies, I meant to do that. Georgiana, is this showing on this Teams or do I need to join?
I can see it now.
Okay, wonderful. So basically, and this is it's fluid, but we're trying as much as possible to stick with this schedule. So basically, right now, we've been looking at the codes. We're in this kind of background exploratory phase right now. I need to get this first board meeting held, want to get your feedback on the code changes, and then we're going to be working on drafting amendments. And so we're kind of we're going to be drafting amendments soon. So we've got our first meeting, which is today. Some of this actually has changed since I last worked on it. Then we're wanting to get council feedback on potential options for advancing the energy code. So that's something we're going to get general direction on sometime soon for options to explore. And then we'll bring back all of the potential amendments for another board meeting in late September, early October. So within the next 2 to 3 weeks. And then have another board meeting in the third week of October. And then in October, we're also going to be going to a bunch of city commissions, just to kind of like in the last code process last time, just to let folks know about potential changes from the code from last time to this time, really in the areas that they're focused on. So like in the Water Commission, for example, we're going to focus on any changes to water conservation standards, for example, if there are any. So really target kind of what these commissions are going to be interested in. So right now we have the Planning and Zoning Commission, Water Commission, Sustainability, Housing. We're going to work with Inclusion Adaptive Living, but weren't able to get onto their agenda. So those are the ones we're going to focus on. And we're going to be doing other outreach and engagement in general to folks who are might be interested in this topic. So if there's other external stakeholders or folks you think we need to talk to, like, let us know. And then there's going to be some open houses. So those are going to be late October, early November. Right now we're thinking of doing 3 of those. So yeah, in a couple different locations, and then a virtual open house. So really trying to just keep this process moving forward. it's likely that if through the commission meetings and the open houses, if folks, we get feedback and engagement from that maybe is different from what you had talked about in previous Board of Appeals meetings, we may need to come back to you just to kind of reconcile any changes that came out of that engagement. And then, so probably, if it says if needed, but you can tentatively plan that we would have a fourth meeting sometime probably middle of November before Thanksgiving, so don't want to mess up anyone's plans. And then short going to city council in December. These dates are, we haven't reserved these dates or anything, but this is kind of our timeline that we're shooting for, is have council work sessions in December, having a first read of actually adopting the code in early January, and then the code going into effect in February. So that's kind of the timeline. So I think expect to have at least 3 Board of Appeals meetings, potentially 4. And we'll just go from there depending on what happens. That's the general idea. So anyone have any questions or comments?
Knowing that we only have 4 board members, if somebody was to apply, would they be able to join before this process is complete? Does that make sense to invite people to apply?
Yes, that's true, right, Georgia? Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we are working with public affairs to post something on social media as well to kind of garner some more interest, so.
Yeah, so we'll see, hopefully. Yeah, so definitely again, appreciate everyone for coming here, and we'll work hard to make sure our next meetings, we just make sure you all can be there. But hopefully we will get another member or 2, just so that it's a little bit easier to get a quorum.
Just thinking about the holidays and
I
all you
know.
got going on, so.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's a good question. So that's the tentative timeline. We're trying hard to stick with that. Just to kind of get we're on the 6-year code update cycle. Last time the codes were adopted in July 2019, the 2018 codes were adopted then. So it's taken a little longer to get this going, but we're feeling good about our timeline. We're kind of in line with a lot of Arizona cities that are in the process of adopting their codes. So anyways, this is the timeline we're trying to stick with. So anyway, so I think that's all I have. And Amy, before we close this item, does anyone have any other questions or comments on the timeline process? Anything like that? Okay. Excellent. Amy, are you there? Are you ready to lead the next agenda item? She's gone.
I am almost pulling into the parking lot right now, so I don't have it in front of me right at the second. I presume that this is talking about our significant changes and where we might want to go with them.
Yes.
Okay, so I guess that's what I will lead into is, has everybody had an opportunity to review this and take a look and provide some feedback as far as what the changes are and whether or not we want to go that route?
I've reviewed it. I don't know that I've spent a lot of time thinking about what we should or should not do. I don't know that, didn't know that was on the assignment list yet. Sorry.
I'm on a similar boat. I reviewed it all and I made notes of things that kind of stuck out. That may be hot topics, I guess.
Okay, well, that's what I would be interested in discussing is the hot topics per se. Dave, heard your voice. I know a hot topic for you is snow loading. So those are the type of things that I think, we should spend the time discussing, not so much the small ticket items, but really what impact it has on our community and the new changes in the new codes. And I will be in about 2 minutes. I just parked.
Jacob, did you want to bring up, is that what you're pulling up right now?
I am, yeah. Again, first time here, so I don't know exactly what all and how we discuss I mean, I guess the main thing that stuck out to me was everything that had to do with energy, in terms of testing and certifications and things like that. In terms of buildings, posting certifications and, different ways to get there and updates on insulation and things like that was kind of the main things that stuck out to me in the IVC, RIC. I can get to maybe some specifics. Maybe should have highlighted that big old list here of just copying and pasting from the Word document.
Hello. You've been waiting at the door screaming some pride or something.
All right, so where are we at right now?
Jacob, were you pulling up some sections you want to talk about?
Yeah, I'm just trying to get back to, I wrote down notes. I'm just trying to find exactly what. I mean, I guess the thing I had at the top of my list, and I just coming from mostly a multifamily background is just, had to do with permanent energy efficiency certs to be posted near furnace or other approved locations. And then just the different methods now of achieving those points and those certifications and things was like the biggest thing that I saw that I guess stuck out to me, which I mean, I'm for, I guess. If that's.
And was that for the commercial or residential energy codes or both?
Both.
Okay.
Yep.
And the requirement for the posting, is that just commercial?
I believe residential as well, reading it, yeah.
Yeah.
Just thinking in my head is, I think in terms of apartment buildings, I guess, just because that's what I'm most familiar with. And just in terms of posting those, because I know that, from experience, we've done certain certifications, but we just haven't really ever done anything with them.
So Dave, I'm gonna go back to you with our snow load questions. What do you think as far as doing individual lots versus just doing a standard snow load for the city of Flagstaff?
So let me give you a little background. Snow loads have historically been listed as roof snow loads. I mean, you know this, but listed as roof snow loads. Recently, in the last code update, they got changed to ground snow loads. Now, the code is changing them to ultimate snow loads. So you guys will recall when I first started, wind was 70 miles an hour here, and we switched from a stress wind load to an ultimate wind load, and we immediately changed it to 105, from 70 to 105. Now, the load actually went down, but the speed went up and everybody freaked out. The same thing is going to happen with snow. So I just did a building at the airport and it was occupancy category 3 because it has to be operational during an emergency. And the snow load, the ground snow load was 193 pounds a square foot. Why? It's been 24. So it's gonna sound terrible, but it actually works out to about, it might be about 5% to 10% more than it is today. And the airport is definitely one of the higher things, but people are gonna hear it and have a gripe. So, and the other thing is, like seismic used to be used in zone 2B, then it became a geocode, right? If you put your latitude and longitude in, you can pull up your seismic load. That is the case now with snow. So the snow load on the east side of town will be different than the snow load on the west side of town. North side of town, between my office and my house, which is a mile and a half, I think it's 20 PSF difference, which really affects, it comes down to like 6 PSF on the roof, that we're affecting, but I think it's gonna be a big deal. So I don't know how to handle it. I was thinking that we might be getting recommendations from our code group, but
Well, Dave and Barb, do you guys have a recommendation on that aside from what you have determined as far as the change?
Well, I think David's right in terms of how it looks awful, but it really isn't that big a difference. So, for us, it's typically been, the engineers are pretty good about adjusting their calcs once we make the comments and, as long as it doesn't affect things from a cost perspective, and I guess it could from the 5% or so difference we're talking about, but, for the most part, I don't think there's been the ones we've seen, I don't think there's been a noticeable change in terms of the cost or the designs too much. I don't know if that helps at all, but that's kind of what
Let me-
we're seeing.
let me ask you, I haven't looked at this yet. Does the IRC adopt snow loads in their tables? I guess they'd have to match the new snow load ultimate condition.
That I'd have to look up.
They do, sorry, this is Barbara. A lot of times the IRC does have snow loads in their tables. If nothing else, then it is in their zoning and their climate area maps. But the individual jurisdictions are able to make amendments to those specific to what things are more like in their area. So while the IRC does have some loads as far as snow loads, I think those are mostly either put into play as live loads and dead loads, and the other loads are in the climate maps, if I understand correctly. And then the jurisdiction can modify their snow loads.
I guess what I was saying, I know how the IRC works. They have span tables and things like that for lumber and headers and whatnot. And in those tables, they reference the snow load. And in the 2018 IRC, I believe they referenced the ground snow load, which is the actual thing that the city gives us. If we don't have any recommendations, I would probably suggest that we go with some kind of engineers can design per the code, or we adopt a standard roof snow load for those that don't get engineering. That would be my recommendation, but it may not look as bad that way.
Right. Well, and that's kind of the process that we've done all along.
Yep.
So it won't be much different.
Correct.
Yeah.
And
But it will be tricky because, like a lot of what we do is we confuse everybody outside the jurisdiction, right? The metal building manufacturers put our roof snow load as their ground snow load, and our truss manufacturers do something similar, and their programs are adopted to match the current code. So that's where it gets tricky. But the locals need something to go by too. So it's really hard.
What were you gonna say?
I do think that the IRC, it still has span tables with the snow loads, so I think it is still kind of prescriptive method. less concerned with the actual design loads, which would be different if you did the engineering calcs on them. So I'm not sure it's going to impact the home builders are going based on the span tables as much.
I guess what I was saying though is that those span tables will be adjusted for the ultimate snow load condition. So the old table that said 60 PSF snow will be the same table, but now we'll say 80 PSF snow, something like that.
I believe you're right. That's what I'm trying to find here in the new code. So let me, if I
But
can find
again,
it, I'll
Amy,
let
you're
you-
gonna have a challenge because, but it's not different than seismic, right? We do an individual seismic check on every structure we do, right? Everybody can pull up those tables right off the internet. You put your latitude and longitude and you pull them up. So I don't know that we necessarily have to say anything. And to be honest with you, it feels like it's coming from a higher power when you do that.
Right. I mean, that's a fair statement.
So I don't know where we go with it, but I think it's gonna be a big ticket, hard push sale, and I think a lot of it is semantics versus truth.
That's kind of why I want to go with just a hard number.
How does the new code address drifted snow conditions up against it?
Same as it did before.
Same way.
I think, so the hard parts, and these are what we saw in all of our failures throughout the years, is drifted snow doesn't get accounted for when you don't have engineering. Sliding snow doesn't get accounted for. Unbalanced snow doesn't get accounted for. And what was the other one that it's been kind of a big deal? I can't recall, but there's a lot of snow factors that don't get accounted for when you don't have engineering. Oh, it's unheated structures, right? All of the parking canopies are unheated structures. So when you have a structure that has heat inside of it, it melts a lot of your snow. And so when you have a parking canopy and it's cold underneath, it just keeps that snow on that roof. So you just get a lot higher loads when you're unheated structure. But when you don't have an engineer, but again, parking canopies and a lot of that stuff is usually commercial. Hopefully has an engineer, but I don't know. Although homes in Pine Canyon have plenty of drifted snow cases and sliding snow cases. So anyway, I don't know. It's hard. I mean, you get all these, if you go to the IRC now, you almost have to have an engineer to help you get through the prescriptive method. So it's just how do you keep the moms and pop building companies that are building simple structures going without burdening them with those engineering costs?
Right. And we have a lot of those, so.
Probably a majority of those.
Definitely.
But the problem is at the same time, they're mom and pop, but they're going bigger and bigger and bolder and bolder and bolder, right? I mean, so, yeah, I don't know.
All right, well, something to think about.
My two other topics of discussion are soil conditions, obviously. We just need to make sure we get that in there. And then there's a new requirement for special inspection of metal buildings, which I think is gonna be a hard sell. So that's a new provision in the code that I think will be something to discuss.
In all likeliness, yes, probably.
Because again, when somebody buys a metal building, a lot of times it's residential anymore, and they don't even know they have to pay for foundations. Then they have to pay for foundations, and then when they go get their permit, now they've got to have a special inspection on their foundation and on their building, which is probably 4 or 5 inspections, not. So anyway, it's just gonna be again, a lot of these amendments take us away from the affordable housing concepts. So there's a balance, right? It's a balance.
I just have a quick question, Amy. When you guys have your metal buildings, are they brought in under prescriptive or are they typically engineered?
They are typically engineered.
So then, and then special inspections aren't required, or are they required for the items that are already required in chapter 16?
Yes, they
Okay.
are required per chapter 16.
Okay, so special inspections are already required per that. And you could simply leave that in there, I would assume.
Most of
Thanks, I
that
just
work,
need clarification.
most of that work is done in the shop. And the new amendments require building inspection, construction level inspections during construction. And during, that process.
Right.
Most of those other inspections are already included in that cost.
Very good. I just was just asking for some questions for clarification that specific there to Flagstaff. So thank you.
Those are my big ticket items.
Mitch, do you have big ticket?
No, just going over that
All right, Ken,
for now.
No,
you're gonna make our process so easy.
he's retired.
I know, right?
Whatever you wanted.
And Jacob, anything else?
I wouldn't say there was anything, I guess necessarily. It was just, I guess, just other, or anything other than that was just like little things, I guess,
Okay.
that I just hadn't really seen before.
So I think Genevieve, right now would be a good time to go over the things that you are wanting to discuss with council as far as the stretch codes. We got the right people in the room and we've got time left, so.
That's good. Yeah, so I mentioned at the beginning a little bit in the schedule. So basically, you know, in 2021, Flagstaff adopted the carbon neutrality plan, which has calls for energy use energy efficiency improvements in buildings over time, including going to net zero residential by 2030. And so we want to go to city council just sooner rather than later, just to get their general direction on how far they want to take it, because we also have our housing plan. So we want to, you know, make sure that we're accounting for costs and making, you know, looking at all these things together. And so we really just want to get their general direction on what they want us to explore. Because this year in both the commercial and residential IECC, there's a lot more amendments than in the 2018 codes. And I think the purpose of that, I know some of them were in the main body, and there was the appeals process, you know, early last year. A bunch of those things got taken out and turned into amendments. And so the residential IECC has, I think, 12 amendments. Last time it had one, just the solar ready amendment. I think commercial has like 8 or 9. I don't know. It's fewer, but it's still quite a bit. And so really the intent of those amendments, or appendices, sorry if I'm interchanging those words, I mean to say appendices, are, you know, to allow governments, local governments who want to adopt them to be able to do that. And so we want to get feedback from council on just generally, what do you want us to look into? And so just because it's so much to look into all of them in as much detail as we would need to just get a sense of generally what do they want us to explore. We would bring that to you. We would bring that to the commissions, open houses, any sort of public engagement, other folks we talk to, get everyone's feedback. If everyone's like, great, this is awesome, then we'll come back to council and be like, hey, council, you told us to look into this. This is what folks said. We're bringing it back to you. Or if people are like, well, this part's good, but this part might not work very well for Flagstaff, we'll also take that back. So it's really trying to get general direction. So we are wanting to go to council to basically present 4 options. So option 1 is no change, just, you know, stay with, not even adopt the 2024 IECC.
No change from past codes.
Yeah, so basically stay on the 2018 IECC. Option 1, that's option 0, it's a little bit, there's 4 of them, that's option 0. Option 1 is basically adopt what is approximately equivalent to our current code, but in the 2024 version. So it's adopting the base code. It's adopting the solar ready appendix, which is basically really similar to what we currently have. It's adopting an appendix to support EV charging, which there wasn't an appendix last time. So the IRC and IBC were amended locally to require a 240 volt outlet in garages and then EV capable spaces in new like parking lots associated with, large multifamily residential and commercial and industrial developments. So now that there's an appendix, we might not need to, obviously we can see, but we wouldn't need to amend the IRC or IBC and could adopt this
And is the
appendix.
appendix close to your current amendments?
It's similar. The appendix offers the ability to do EV capable, EV ready, or EV charger, both in garages and in parking lots. So you could recommend to adopt that, or you could recommend to adopt those with amendments. Again, we haven't really explored the amendment process. One option could be to adopt those with the amendment to keep them equivalent to current code, so that they really are basically, just going with the 2024.
What does
Update.
the 24 code say right now?
It says that you mean the appendix?
Yeah.
The garages can provide either an EV capable, EV ready, or EV charger space. And EV capable is like the wiring without the outlet. EV ready is the outlet. So that's the one that's approximately equivalent to our current code. Or actually providing a charger, which is above and beyond. But people can choose one of those three options. So that's what is in the appendix. And then then there's requirement, again, you could do for parking lots, EV capable, EV ready, or full EV charger for parking lots. So it does allow folks to go beyond our current code, but it also allows them to do what is in our current code. The amount of spaces is higher than our current code. So we can talk about that if council directs us to look into that, we can bring all those details back.
I'm just thinking if a residence doesn't have a garage, a single family residence, would they have to be EV ready outside?
Yeah, so that would be in the parking lot. So basically there's the requirement for the garages and then there's the requirements for the parking lots.
I guess what I'm thinking, just a single family home, you got a driveway or something.
If you don't have it in the garage. Yeah, that's a good question. I think it might say that, but I don't remember all the details, but
That's right.
yeah, but you're right. I think it accounts for that, but we'd have to confirm that. And then the commercial code also has EV charging. Again, it's those EV capable, EV ready, and EV charger spaces. And it does have specific requirements for a certain number of percentages that would have to, at minimum, like a minimum percent of parking spaces would be EV capable, minimum EV ready, minimum EV charger. That varies greatly depending on the occupancy. So it has the EV charging, but that one is more than our current code. So we can, get into those details. If council directs us to look into that amendment, we'll absolutely do a better job explaining this than I am today.
Now, are all EV chargers, what do you got, 110 and 220 options? Is that how those work, or are they all 220? They are?
Yeah, so there's level 1, 2, and 3 EV chargers. So if we're looking at a garage, for example, level 1 is just your standard 120. Takes forever to charge.
Right.
So it doesn't work very well, but you can. Level 2 is the 240. And then I'm not sure if you can do level 3 in a garage. I don't think so, because it's just you have the plug, and then if someone had an EV, they would just buy the charger that you plug into the plug that would connect to your car. So I'm not sure if you could do.
But that's still the 240 though,
Mhm.
right?
It's still 240, yeah. So I think in a garage, realistically, that would be the farthest you would go. But then in a parking lot, we've got the current requirements for EV capable, which is just the wiring, underneath the space. And then EV ready's a little bit more infrastructure that makes it that much easier to put a charger on. And then the full EV space is where you actually build the charger. So this one has a few more options, but than our current code. So our current code again had to be amended, and I don't know, Amy, if you want to speak to that anymore, but just.
Yeah, not
Okay.
really. I mean, pretty much it.
Okay. Yeah, so anyway, so this one is somewhat equivalent, but there are some changes and for the number of parking spaces that would need either EV capable, EV ready, or full EV charger that is higher than our current code.
So fire wise, do you guys prefer the EV charger to be inside or outside?
I'm thankful that Chris Jack, our fire marshal, is on the call. Chris, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
question about, oh, go ahead. If you heard him, go ahead.
Yeah, I heard it. I know there's some new requirements in the fire code as far as EV charging in the garage. You have to create some protection. So a lot of times that is proposed as bollards, protecting the charging assembly from cars also if they're doing like battery storage. So it would be preferred outside, reduces that risk of fire, but I don't think there's anything in the code that forces it to be outside.
And Chris, is that still true if it's just a 240 volt outlet in the garage?
Yeah, that's fine. I think it's totally allowed by code. All I was adding is, granted, from a fire perspective, if the car did, start a fire, it would be best to have that outside of the garage. But there's nothing in code that requires it to be that way.
We can bring that back, just comparing.
So you're requiring more fire protection as far as the inside of the garage if the charger is inside the garage? In other words, thicker sheetrock or whatever?
I don't know if there's any changes. I'd have to dig into that one a little bit more. I don't know if there's any changes for a EV charger. Or not.
I could speak to that. There's no changes on the protection in the residence. But what we do see is there are chargers now by certain manufactured cars that are faster chargers. They go up to 40, 50, 80, even Porsche has one that's 100 volts. So usually the cost changes the change in the panel size. And that's usually the bigger issue.
Heavier wiring. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Also hard to add in after the fact,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I guess if you have a Porsche, you're building your house anyways.
You don't care about the power.
So we'll bring back this in more detail to you, once we get direction, we can, compare the current code with what would be in these appendices, and we can start talking about local amendments and things like
Got a
that.
question with all these amendments. Incrementally, all these different changes are not gonna cost very much, or some more than others. But when you add them all together, we already have a problem with the cost of construction in this town. Are we looking at what all of these amendments are gonna do as far as cost?
I don't think we're talking about amendments. I think we're talking about no amendments.
No, yeah.
So with the appendices, yes, that's all in there. The National Association of Home Builders did an analysis looking at the cost of the 2024 IECC as well as a selected number of appendices. So on single family homes, so don't have great multifamily data. Would love to get better data on that, but at least for single family. So we do have an idea, and this one's probably between $500 and $600 to add the plug. Yeah,
That's just for power. Changes to the snow load, any other changes to the code that are gonna increase the cost of construction?
I just have info from the energy codes, so I'm not sure about the other ones. I know Neil's looking into that, and I don't know.
Energy code and structure guys don't.
Yeah.
Some of the detailing for that takes away from the structural capacity pretty significantly.
So Mitch, we're, to the extent we can provide that, we are, because we do have to look at it holistically. I don't think we'll have everything. I don't know, Amy, if you wanna.
Yeah, I think really the big focus from a financial standpoint is all of the energy components, because a lot of the building side, while it might cost a little bit more money, there's not a lot of negotiation with that. So we're really focusing on what these added things are that we may want to add on or not, and what those costs would be.
I guess, for example, I mean, whether the city requires a solar panel ready roof or not, we have to plan on it anyway. Because Mitch Walzer may go on and put it on his roof, right? So it doesn't really, the cost is already there because the technology exists, people do it.
I'm just looking at the new mandatory on-site renewable energy requirements. And reading the pros and cons, it could get awfully expensive.
Yeah, and I think when we look at, that's in the commercial IECC, and yeah, definitely. That's something that we want your feedback on.
And I wouldn't get too hung up on the mandatory renewable energy stuff yet, because we are actually meeting back with our attorney tomorrow to understand what that looks like and if we need to amend that out. Because of Arizona state law, which is what I believe I sent to the group already, is just to take aware or be aware, take a look at those requirements. So we are still working on a legal analysis on that. And hopefully tomorrow we will have some better information moving forward. But that is definitely something that we are looking at is, while it doesn't say you can't use gas, are we really pushing people to the point where they don't use gas because we are making them do all of these other things? So, yeah, we're working on that interpretation right now.
And I will note that since a couple other cities have adopted the IECC, including Phoenix, they did amend that part out.
So on your, commercial or residential for putting panels on, how are you having that calculated? Are you saying that you want them to produce 100% of their theoretical use per day?
I believe the commercial code has them, actually, I'm not gonna answer that. Dave, you go for it. You're gonna do better than me.
It doesn't ever go for 100%. That's impossible to reach. So it's usually a percentage based on your solar area access. So the amount of roof space you could actually put the solar onto, and then which direction it's facing, and it comes a calculation, gives you a percentage. It's never going to be a full charge. It's just providing some energy efficiency back to the structure.
I'm gonna keep going just on the different options. So just to recap, we were on option one, which is the base IECC, which I believe is about a 15 to 20% improvement in energy efficiency over our current code. And then you have just a couple appendices, the solar ready. So the text is really similar, if not almost identical to what we have now. At least the base amendment without any local amendments. And then again, we just talked about EV charging. And this one does include an additional appendix to support electric ready construction. So that's not in our current code. So this option is approximately equivalent to what we have, but it's a little bit more than what we currently have. So basically electric ready is really for mixed fuel homes, just providing a 240 behind the water heater, clothes dryer, and stove, just so someone could easily switch out to electric if they want to in the future, whether they're the first resident or the 10th. Just these ones are really trying to help folks avoid costly future retrofits, because we know how hard it is to add that once the home is already built. So that's kind of where those really all three of those, the solar ready, the EV charging, and the electric ready, are just meant to support these things in the future. If someone decides to install solar in the future, if someone wants an EV, but even if they don't, in their garage, they could use a welding machine, air compressor, just having that outlet to support EV charging, but other uses as well. And then again, the electric ready construction, just avoid potentially thousands of dollars worth of future retrofits. So that's really option one. So again, option 0 is no change. Option 1 is adopt the IECC with those 2024 with those amendments, appendices, and then any local amendments. Option 2 includes basically what we talked about in option 1, base codes, EV charging, electric ready construction. There is an additional solar ready appendix that just applies to more buildings, because the one we have right now just applies to single family homes and townhomes. So there's one that applies to a greater variety of residential buildings. And it has some electric infrastructure requirements. I think we need to talk to the solar companies and other folks to kind of hear their perspectives if we do explore this appendix, but odds of option 2 would consist of those things. And then it would consist of one additional appendix that improves energy efficiency by about 10% over the 2024 base code. So at this point, you're getting to about 25% improvement in energy efficiency over a current code. And then the last one is net zero ready construction. So it includes adopting the base code, adopting the EV charging appendix, adopting a solar ready appendix, the electric ready construction appendix, and then allowing or requiring buildings to be net zero ready. So basically that's at least a 30% improvement in energy efficiency over Flagstaff's current code. And then, yeah, and this is, yeah, so we'll need to get feedback on that. We kind of just want to know what of those things should we explore, because the residential is somewhat straightforward. I don't want to say too straightforward, but it's a lot less complicated than the commercial. So we're going to have to get some good, yeah, we're going to have to look into these a lot and figure out would they work for Flagstaff? If yes, what do we need and what do we need to amend, basically. So if you all have any feedback on that, you know, we'll bring this back in more detail in the future, but if you have any thoughts, you're welcome to share them now.
Is there a world where we're able to have it you need to provide 2 out of the 3 of these things for a builder, or is that kind of out of the power of code amendments? Like if they supply dual fuel and an outlet in the garage, solar ready wouldn't necessarily have to be, or if they did solar and an outlet in the garage, they wouldn't have to do dual fuel. Is that a possibility, or is that?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's definitely a possibility. I mean, here's the thing is on amendments, anything is a possibility. So it's just having to write it into it to make it law, essentially. So, but yeah,
I have to explain to people a lot of times that the IBC is really not a code. It's a model code. It's not a code until a jurisdiction adopts it. And so however the city of Flagstaff adopts it, we call them amendments, but they're not really, they're just amending a model code. So the city of Flagstaff code is the building code as written with changes, with amendments. So, yeah. So until it's adopted, it's a law, right? The building code is a law. So the city writes their own laws. The building code is just a company that makes a lot of money.
It's recommended.
Pretending to have a code.
I mean, and really the building code, residential code, that is our guideline.
Mhm.
And then we try and make whatever associated changes that we want to, that works for our community with that. So that's what it is. And that's really the purpose of what we're meeting about now is, yeah, to hear what your ideas are, what changes you would want to see in this code adoption. And then whether or not it'll be supported by the community, because this is step number 1. We are going to be meeting with the public for a few different public outreach events, and we will be presenting these particular items of, hey, you know, our Board of Appeals already met with this, they are good with this, or these are the type of changes that they want to see. And then we have that conversation with them, and then we take that to council and say, you know, the community has spoken. This is how they want to see it go. This is what our Board of Appeals said, you know, provide us the direction that we need to go in. Because in the end, you know, we can meet all we want. But if council has a completely different idea and they want to adopt something different, then that's what we have to go off of. But I would say like the biggest component is they want to see the public outreach and they want to see us doing our homework and what works for our community.
Okay. Perfect.
I
Thank
sit
you.
on another board for the school district, and I will say that there's a big, I don't know that it's a majority of public, but it's a very loud voice in public that's pushing for net zero. I mean, there's a loud voice. And the really hard part, and I think I think it's in the back of the mind of council pretty often is this affordable housing component.
Right.
Right, because they really do pull at each other, right? They're both good objectives, but they really do pull at each other. And so, but the voice of affordable housing is a lot lower. Unfortunately, sometimes I think, I don't think it's unfortunate that we do green things, but it's
Right.
just, there's gotta be some kind of balance. And so I think that we will find that we will have to progress forward in this effort regardless of whether, I mean, it's gonna cost money, right? But we're gonna have to progress forward at some level. I think we have to try to help council set that level, right? It's just kind of the level you're talking, right? Zero is never gonna fly. Option zero that you talked about is never gonna fly, right? We gotta do better. But,
And 4 probably won't fly either. So where's that happy medium?
well, but there's a lot of people that are very loud that will want for it to fly. So.
Exactly.
So we just have to be, I think councils, from my experience, is pretty good at taking recommendations from their boards. But I think we have to be ready for that. Maybe be the responsible voice in the room. Because I don't think it's a majority of public. I think they're just very loud voices in that. And again, it's not a bad thing. And if you ask people if they want that, they all want that. But then when you compare it to what it costs, I think that that discussion has to come into balance.
Well, and I mean, the biggest thing that I've been asking Genevieve is like, how long will it take for the rate of return for these particular items? And I believe you checked into how long somebody actually owns their home in Flagstaff, and it's about 12 years. So most, not all things, you will be able to see that rate of return within the time frame of you owning your home. So
That's if you can afford to buy it in the first place.
exactly. And that's really the big thing, Mitch, is, yeah, it's gotta be affordable to even be able to purchase. And then to be able to see what that return is in the end.
The other hard thing that I think we see is that we have to write a standard for the next 6 years. Right? And I can almost promise you that green technology will be probably 10 times better in the next 6 years.
Right.
Right? And so it's hard to balance that and cheaper, right? Better and cheaper. So it's just really hard to understand where that balance is, right? It is.
The solar panels are getting smaller and more efficient.
They all are.
So
I mean, it's just
you have to
technology.
cover your roof. Now,
Yeah.
now you can.
But we have to write this for the next 6 years. And so the question is are we at the, there's a curve, and every curve is gonna max out at some point, right? Not, I mean, they'll still go a little bit, but it's not gonna get the benefit. But I think we're, at least right now, still in the kind of uphill climb of that technology. But when does it max out? When is it really not economical and efficient to do that?
The other question, are you working with the county and looking to adopt the same amendments, or?
We are trying to, Jay actually just sent me his latest energy code stuff because, they did not adopt the IECC previously, but they are looking at doing an adoption now. I have not gone into great detail on that, and partly because for the energy components, it's so different. I mean, the county is so large. And, what might work for us in the city doesn't work for White Sage, Fredonia, those type of areas. So I have to take that particular code with a grain of salt. I mean, we're just not going to align, and that's purely based on, what resources are available in those areas. So, but yes, we definitely are trying to align as much as possible, just like what we did before. What'd you say?
So the residential more than commercial.
I chat with Nina at the county quite often lately about some wildfire risk reduction science that's out there, kind of what's happening at all the way from like the state level down to the local level and where we see ourselves fitting in and, bouncing ideas off each other. So we're talking quite often.
But they manage a very different risk, right? A very different risk.
They, it's a lot bigger footprint and diverse footprint that they have to deal with.
Yeah.
Well, that and climate zones, I mean, there's so many different aspects with the county versus the city. So,
It's,
so yeah, we align as much as we possibly can, but you know, there's just certain components that we can't be 100% on.
I think the snow load issue is much more applicable to county, right? Like,
Yes.
it's okay to have different snow loads across the county. It might be a hard sell to say that the snow load's different in downtown Flagstaff than it is at the mall.
Exactly. That's kind of why I wanted to just go with a standardized number, because we're looking at a very concentrated area instead of the entire county.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, we do have an ADU model plans library that's gonna be launched soon, and if the city has any other, well, probably mostly ADUs, I don't know if we'll have any other model plans, but the snow loads in different locations would really impact the ability to have a model plan work throughout Flagstaff. So that's just kind of another wrinkle in all of
Right,
this too.
well, and Jacob, you guys know, because you guys deal with model plans a lot too.
Repeats, yeah.
That's true, yeah, in subdivision.
I'd be curious to see
Yeah.
if one end of Pine Canyon is different than the other end. I mean, it's gonna be, but is it 10 pounds or is it 2 pounds, you know?
Yeah, that's an interesting wrinkle. I didn't even think about other types of model plans, yeah.
Manufactured homes,
Exactly.
also a huge issue with the state right now.
Well, one thing I wanted to add, and I can provide this information shortly, to the group, is thinking about the costs of construction, of energy features versus the savings. One thing I did do for the council presentation, I'm just tweaking the numbers, so I don't wanna, count them as final yet, but actually, depending, net zero could potentially save residents money in year one, even counting for higher mortgage costs, just because, or monthly or annual mortgage payment, just accounting for how much they save in utility bills. So it's trying to look at, yes, it raises the overall sales price, but also looking at how much does it impact the mortgage? Because we're gonna just focus on folks who have to have a mortgage to buy homes, because if they don't, then they're not gonna care very much about that.
Still not the affordable housing
Yeah.
people anyway.
Yeah, but just in terms of home ownership, it does add costs. But the savings are can be really dramatic too, even for net zero ready. And they could potentially save folks money even in year one on their monthly costs, even though their overall housing, the whole price is higher. So that's something we're looking at. And again, I'm gonna make sure these are really dialed in before I share them publicly, but has the potential to do that, especially as utility costs increase. And one thing to think about that's been helping me is just thinking about the houses built today and tomorrow could be around, 50 to 100 years. So how much could some of these things save folks in the future, whether they're the first resident or the fifth resident? I think where this gets challenging, how does this impact rental housing? Does it raise rents? Like, does higher construction costs raise rents? Do folks get those savings? I think it gets more complicated. So I don't know. If anyone has good ideas for
But the other
data on
piece of
that,
it is 6 years down the road, right?
yeah.
What is gas cost and what is electric cost? Because
Yeah.
regulation is gonna affect those.
Yeah, and we know both APS and Unisource have requested rate hikes this year. So utility prices are going up. So that's why I think we got to look at this holistically. I don't think there's a perfect answer to all of it, but just trying to think about, we want to get folks into homes and how can they save in the long term utility costs too. But anyway, so yeah, we'll can bring this back with more details. We can talk about it, but those are kind of the four options that we're looking at.
I think
to
you
count.
said earlier, we need some direction from council to start with, right?
I mean, it's so big, like looking at all of those and just trying to dig into all those appendices, especially in the commercial code, would just be really challenging. So once we get a kind of general direction of how far they want to take it, then we'll know what to look into and bring to you.
Doesn't help that, the feds are dropping their 30% tax credit too. 1st of October.
Okay, so we'll see. We'll let you know when we have our council date, so you can tune in if you want to. But we'll definitely come back, whatever direction we get, we'll come back with really a lot of details on how it's different from current code and get your feedback on moving forward on that.
I think that was it, wasn't it? Okay. Does anybody have anything for us? Other than saving money, Mitch, I know.
On that line, Neil, do you want to share anything?
Sure, the 2006 WUI code that was adopted in 2008, a lot of those amendments are now in the 24 code. So we did not see significant changes in the 24 code as written compared to our 2006 code with amendments. But we're working through a couple different amendment processes internally to try to provide a few different recommendations on paths forward. There's it's really incredible the amount of wildfire risk reduction science that's progressed since 2006, both from natural just research, but also from the unfortunate incidents of like the Marshall Fire, Lahaina, Paradise, Palisades, Eaton, and some really cool new models and data are out there that we're using to kind of shape our vision of how we want to both study our existing footprint and how we can build new. I think one comment I'll just try to leave you guys with is a lot of our new development around the perimeter of Flagstaff. I think a lot of people see that as exposing us to greater risk, where I think if we do it right, it reduces our risk because that perimeter, that's our buffer from the rest of the city. If we just build it however we want, then yes, it could potentially be increasing our risk, but doing it smart, doing some changes to how we manage vegetation, we can be building a smarter buffer around the city than we potentially have been. Not that we've been doing anything wrong, but I think we can be doing a few things that align with some of the best available science a little better. For example, a 0 to 5 foot fuel-free zone around new construction is one of these recommendations that's being pushed all over. And it seems to make a lot of sense in some of the disasters that we've seen, the houses that survive versus don't survive. But you know, that's both landscaping and vegetation versus WUI code. And so it's some exciting times. I just want to, you know, thank you guys for being here and working with Tiffany all the time. I kind of joke with folks. I've got Tiffany driving around upset about wildfire risk and she's got me writing code. So I think we're on the right path here for trying to make sure that we've got a bunch of different eyes on the different things that we're working on. Is there anything else you wanted? Oh, cost wise, a few of the changes we're looking at adding to the code to align with certain qualifications that currently aren't available in the state of Arizona, but we envision will be in the future. Clearly, we'll add a tiny bit of cost. It won't be significant compared to our current code because our current code already has things like Class A roof. So, you know, continuing that doesn't increase costs. But we're envisioning through a partnership with Headwaters Economics, which is a really cool research firm in this space, that the proposed changes we're looking at, they're going to do an analysis and give us like some very local specific cost increases for whatever we're looking into. But we all know where insurance is right now. And we don't want to like hide from the reality that what we're going to propose increase potential costs, but and that cost, how readily will it be caught up in savings with potential insurance challenges?
If you don't have a 5 foot buffer, so you can't get insurance anymore, so.
Yeah, some of this is completely out of our hands, you know, so we'll do our best to set people up for success. And I think that's my foundational goal right now, really, is to look at that new development zone as protecting our existing infrastructure versus exposing us to greater risk.
Buffer.
Yeah,
That
I mean,
meets the code. That meets the code.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of land that's gonna be built out in the next decade or 6 years before we sit down and do this again, so. I'm gonna get it right.
I had one more thought. The other thing I want to talk or think about anyway is existing building code and how these changes to energy and other codes will affect remodels, changes, you know, and how, you know, code compliance in the future, if you will, or for,
Right.
I mean, it's very specific for structures, right? I mean, I know when I have to be the new code or I can stay on the old code, but I think a lot of these other things, you know, if I remodel my kitchen, am I gonna have to make my garage EV ready? You know, that kind of stuff.
Right, well, and I think the IEBC is pretty specific, you know, what level of alteration you're
Right.
doing will dictate what you need to be working on.
But I think in those levels, we could push, like a kitchen remodel could very well push code requirements in other areas
Right.
because of the cost of a kitchen, right? Could push you to add EV outlets in your garage. If they just, we just need to think about how, because yeah, we do some new construction in town, but a lot of what we do is
Tons of remodels.
changing what's there.
Exactly. No, I mean, you make a really, really good point. And yeah, so how do we look at that? Do we look at
Again, holistically.
evaluation, which is just the valuation for what we are permitting versus a kitchen remodel? I have no interest in what it costs to do cabinets. My interest is what the cost is for the electrical, you know, for the other components that we are actually doing the inspection on. So, you know, maybe that's how we go about that.
But again, if somebody's willing to spend the money on the good stuff, then they should be able to afford the. I want us to
You're
be,
being the devil's advocate here because you're playing both sides.
I do play both sides. That's what a good committee does, right? I just think we need to think about it, right? I think we need to
Oh,
be
yeah,
aware
for
that,
sure.
you know, some things affect other things.
Yep,
I got a
definitely.
question about your 5 foot. Is that to the trunk of the tree or the canopy?
We're still working on some of those details, trying to figure that stuff out, because I'll be honest, a mature tree that's limbed up and doesn't have a whole bunch of debris below it is not something I worry about as much, as long as that canopy is not touching the roof.
Uh-huh.
Or you're picking up the needles off your roof that's throwing down on your roof and your gutters. So we're still, you know, there's a couple standards out there that we envision aligning our code with, just to begin with, and how those standards interpret that is something we're still trying to figure out, because we've all seen pictures of these neighborhoods burnt up and a tree 5 feet away from the house survived just fine. So,
Well, I know like
Yeah.
the zoning code, of course, requires canopy area figured into development. And, you know, if you're having to do the 5 feet, is it the trunk or the canopy?
we're working on that. And Tiffany and I actually have a pilot project right now that is creating opportunities to model out your tree retention instead of having to do the old way of calculating those metrics exactly, the, you know, 50%, 30%, those kind of
Right.
things. So, what we really want to do is make sure we're optimizing tree retention. I don't want to say within like feet of distance, but more along the lines of like separation and making sure that, you know, I'm guessing the codes or the qualifiers are gonna say like the stem of the tree can't be within 5 feet. And as long as like I think the code says the canopy can't be overreaching, you know, either chimneys or certain parts of the roof. But you know, this is where we get into the art versus the metrics. But we'll get into that for sure.
And Tiffany just put in the comments, code currently doesn't allow more than a 20% encroachment on the canopy of a tree. That is to save the tree.
Well, yeah, but
I don't know what that means, but.
I'm just saying if it's a large tree, it can be 15 feet away from the house. But yet the canopy will be
branches.
within, you know, almost to the house.
Yep.
You know, I mean, the canopy gets really big
And
in
you
those
know,
cases.
we love to pick on University Heights, but they have some big, beautiful old trees in there that are really, as long as you're picking up those needles, they're not posing a risk to that actual house. Now, if you have, you know, giant old junipers at the base of the tree, then I'm gonna be a little more worried because those junipers are gonna rip up the tree. But but I think this is where we need to make sure we get the standards in there, but we also provide some flexibility for people to kind of understand. It's not always about the tree, it's kind of how you're setting that tree up. Is there vegetation around it? Or, you know, do you want to pick up pine needles on your roof? If not, then cut the tree. So that's retrofit versus, you know, new construction. but
Right.
Yeah.
Those are yours, Tiffany.
No, Tiffany, we're on the same page these days. It's kind of spooky.
Anything?
I'm frequently scared.
Wink if we need to consider this relationship a little deeper.
Right? I need to start flashing emergency signals.
I think, few other things before we adjourn, our date for our next meeting. So it looks like the dates that work best for the board, Ken, I don't have your availability yet, are the October 2nd from 2 to 4, or October 7th from 1 to 3. And Amy, I wanted to get your thoughts on just getting materials together for the board in time, if you have a preferred date.
October 2nd from what?
2 to 4, or October 7th from 1 to 3. So
Second works for me.
I can make any of those work.
does that feel doable in terms of getting materials? It's about little more than 2 weeks.
Yeah, and then will you have feedback as far as where we're gonna go for we might wanna push it just a little bit because I don't wanna have multiple meetings with the board let me rephrase this. I would rather have the next meeting with the board with everything that we need to discuss because I just don't see a purpose for having multiple meetings if we don't need to. And so if we don't have all of the information with all of our codes by then I would say, why don't we push it to when we will have everything?
Ken, did you say you were gone in early October?
Yeah, I'll be gone from the 7th through the 15th. And yes, people who are retired still take vacations.
Take more.
When is the council meeting?
Oh, I don't know. Okay. I guess the question is, will we have enough to talk about on the other codes that might be good to still hold the meeting, and then Neil, you're gonna have stuff, like the other codes are gonna have stuff. So,
Right,
I'm
but
not
then we're
sure
gonna
too.
have to meet again for this one, or for the energy component. I don't know. I mean, that's my personal opinion, and I'm gonna go with whatever you guys want. So if you guys want to have a meeting to talk about everything but energy, and then we have another meeting for energy, totally fine.
I think there's enough content in each to do that. I mean, I'll talk at one and not at the other. I think most of us will talk at one and not at the other.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
do the second for everything but the energy code, and then as soon as we have direction on the energy code, then schedule that next meeting. Because we don't have a time for that yet, so.
Great, so we'll send out a calendar invite for the second, and then send out a doodle poll in the future for the next meeting. The last one is agenda item number 8, informational items to or from board members and staff and future agenda item requests. So does anyone have anything on that topic? Okay, great. Well, we'll adjourn the meeting at 3:19. Thank you, everyone, for your time. We'll see you in early October. Sydney. Thanks, Barbara. Thank you.
Thank you.